We'll let everyone join. And we'll kind of jump in and get started. I already see some familiar faces in the things. So I am going to just open it up to let the ladies on this call introduce themselves. So Casey, you want to start us off and kind of take it away?
So my name is Casey Cromwell. I am based in Colorado. A lot of people know me by my username, College Celiac KC, since I started doing this over 12 years ago when I first went into college. I graduated college, but we are celiac forever, so I share everything gluten-free related on my page.
And I'm Gabby, or No Gluten Gabby on my social media. I've been diagnosed for actually 5 years this month, so yay. And I started my platform 4 years ago, so I went through about a year of my diagnosis handling it, and I was like, it's time to find other people in this community, so here we are. And I'm in Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Hi guys, I'm Lorin from Eat Gluten-Free with Me. I am based in New York. I got diagnosed with celiac disease 8 years ago, which feels so crazy to me now. I just realized that literally, I think 2 days ago. And yeah, I share everything about gluten-free living, traveling with celiac disease, and also just like the mental health aspects of living with an autoimmune disease. So I'm so excited to have you guys all here today.
My name is also Lorin. I'm Lorin Smith. I am based out of Utah, and I have had celiac disease for 9 years this July, so I'm coming up on my anniversary. I'm on Instagram as Good Gluten-Free Grub, and I share like my favorite gluten-free grub wherever I eat, mostly based here in Utah, but wherever I travel as well, I'll share where I eat and how I navigate my celiac life. I In Utah specifically, I do gluten-free events and social events for the community here and to share my life on social media and on my podcast. So I'm also so happy to be here.
I'm Janae Cox. I live in Utah, and you know me as Clean Money Meals on Instagram. I don't do any other platforms because I can't even function just doing Instagram. So I have Facebook and YouTube and TikTok, but you will rarely see me post on there. I've been diagnosed with celiac for 11 years in July this year. And then my oldest daughter has type 1 diabetes and celiac disease. She was diagnosed 5 years ago with both of those. So gluten-free is our whole entire life, and navigating it has been a journey. That's
Awesome. I'm Erin, or the Celiac Space. I live in Texas, originally from California, but I've kind of been all over. I have a team of dietitians that are all celiac, and we work with celiac clients, both celiac and then on gut health and other functional medicine needs. And we post a lot of different like resources from like the medical side, a little bit more of celiac versus like products or recipes, because I'm not a foodie at all, to be honest. So I kind of share more of the medical side of things. And we also have a celiac app, which I'll kind of share a little bit. They're one of the sponsors. So the Celiac app is where we have posted all of our resources and content from dining out to how to read a label to product recommendations that are celiac safe. And as of this weekend, we are relaunching our app with Celia, who is our AI chatbot that we have created custom in-house to be specific for celiac. So it's different than like a ChatGPT that can access the internet or have all types of information that might not be safe. It's really just verified by the dietitian. So, and then Janae, you want to talk about clean meals?
Yeah, so I started selling products, let's see, three years ago. After Colby got diagnosed with celiac is kind of when the drive for everything kind of changed for our family. And there were so many things that we couldn't have. And she was just like wanted to feel so normal. And when I was diagnosed, I was just like eating and navigating life, and I still feel like feeding my family normally. And then when she got diagnosed, I was like, okay, this is our whole family now. We're all doing this together. And that's when the seasonings I was creating just in mason jars, I was sharing the recipes for free. And then I decided, well, people kept asking, like, please sell this. And I was like, I'm giving you the recipe, just make it. And Kev's like, why don't we just try it out? And so we took our savings and we launched at the first Gluten-Free Expo 3 years ago and sold out of product at the show. And we now have a line of 15 products, and continue to just keep growing. We're launching new products all the time. And then we have an app where it's all recipes. And the reason I created the app is because I do not count calories, macros, or carbs. And when Colby got diagnosed, all of my recipes, I didn't have that information. And so I needed a place where I could gather all that information. So anybody that deals with type 1 diabetes, you need all that. And so I created an app so anybody dealing with that could grab the gluten-free, dairy-free also, but understand type 1 diabetes as well.
That's a great resource. So we're going to jump into the questions. We had a lot of user submitted questions, both from signups and Instagram. So we're going to get to as many as we can and have different people kind of answer. So first is from Emily Larson. Sparkling waters like Kirkland and Bubbly contain natural flavors, but it seems unlikely they would contain gluten. What are your thoughts?
Natural flavors can definitely be a tricky one because usually they can be gluten-free, but they can also be made from barley malt. And because barley only contains gluten and not wheat, and in the US, wheat is not a top allergen, barley could be in a product and they do not have to have a contains wheat, or like they would in other countries, it contains gluten label. So typically what I do, or what I recommend to others who see something that isn't labeled gluten-free but has natural flavors, is reach out to that manufacturer. And I've honestly had a lot of luck even doing that, like on Instagram or Facebook. A lot of their social media teams will either have that info because more social media teams are being trained on allergens, or they'll be able to tell you who to contact so that you can get more info on where those natural flavors are coming from.
Yeah, kind of tagging in off of that. Natural flavors can be so difficult, and they're in, I feel like 95% of all of the food in America. So there are a lot of sparkling water brands that are labeled gluten-free. So if I see one that does contain natural flavors, I'll usually just stick to a brand that I know that's labeled gluten-free just to be safe as well.
Yeah, basically either needs a gluten-free label or you got to look into it deeper. I think if people were to say like, what's your top 10 complaints about gluten-free natural ingredients, natural flavors is going to be like our pet peeve #1 for a lot of people.
For sure.
Okay, Sandy, is there any talk of barley being considered a top allergen, so it can be noted on the ingredient list, kind of like what Casey said? I'm also confused when something is labeled gluten-free but has oats in the ingredient list. Not gluten-free oats, it just states oats. So is that safe?
Oats and barley malt are definitely really tricky ingredients. Unfortunately, gluten is still not a top allergen in the US. There is a ballot or a petition going around now online that you can sign to help to make gluten a top allergen. And I know a lot of us do have those in our links in bio. I know it's at least in mine. So hopefully gluten will be a top allergen in the future, and that would catch things like barley malt. And as for oats, the main issue is that oats by themselves are naturally gluten-free, but they are very easily cross-contaminated by wheat fields that are growing nearby. So typically you want to stick to a product that has a gluten-free label if it does have oats. Personally, I typically stick to certified gluten-free products or certified gluten-free oats just to be extra sure that those products have met even more standards of testing to make sure that they are gluten-free and that cross-contact hasn't snuck in.
By of us 6, show of hands if you eat oats as a celiac. Okay, so we all do. Just because there's a lot of myths out there that with celiac you can't eat oats, or that it's really common. And from a dietitian perspective, oats are naturally gluten-free. It's not a concern. There are people in a general population that are sensitive to the protein in oats too, but that happens in people with celiac and without celiac, so it's not necessarily a celiac correlation. So,
can I add a comment in here?
Yeah, please.
So I eat oats, mostly that are certified gluten-free. The one thing that I always have issues with ever since I've been diagnosed, and I don't really have any issues with anything else, is the Trader Joe's products that contain oats. And I know that's a common topic that's brought up in social media. Erin, I don't know if you have any comments on that aspect, but I think it's important to talk about because I'm sure other people are wondering as well.
I mean, I could jump in just from what I've seen of Gluten Watchdog. You know, she has posted over the years of she's done testing for Trader Joe's oats specifically because Trader Joe's does not reveal their sourcing. And
Right.
that could be an issue because you don't know where they're growing, if they are certified or not. So
Mhm.
she has posted that some of their oats do test higher than that 20 parts per million of gluten, that there are some hot spots in those batches where maybe you bought a gluten-free oat containing product from Trader Joe's once and it was fine, and you could get that same product again and you could get one of those higher batched gluten containing oats and could have a problem with it in the future. So typically I only avoid oat products that are labeled gluten-free if they are from Trader Joe's. I don't have any issues with their other non-oat containing gluten-free labeled products, but because of Gluten Watchdog and her testing, it can be like a trickier store to navigate.
For sure.
Yeah, Trader Joe's has like the gluten-free oats in the blue bag, and those are like not ideal. Like on a desert island, I would live off them for sure. But when there's a million other like certified, much safer, just straight oats, definitely pick those. But the products that Trader Joe's has, for example, they have like oat bars, right? It's labeled gluten-free, it has oats in it. They're not using their gluten-free oats in that. So no, because it's not certified gluten-free, doesn't use their gluten-free oats, which would be the same thing for like what are those green bars, Nature's Valley or whatever?
Yeah.
Those like some of them label gluten free, but they're just regular oats. So again, it's not safe. So yeah, Casey.
Thank you for sharing. I just wanted to clarify that for anyone wondering.
Super
That's
helpful.
Yeah. Okay, Anna, I'm a mother of 2 toddler kiddos with celiac. How do you wish your parents helped you navigate celiac physically and mentally? Does therapy help? What can I do to support them besides making food at home inclusive?
Honestly, like I feel so fortunate that I was diagnosed at 17. I was still living with my parents at home. And while my home didn't go 100% gluten-free, they always made sure that I had like a little gluten-free cabinet that only had my things, that they were careful about crumbs on the counters, and that if there were special events, my parents would go out of their way to pick up some things from like a local gluten-free bakery or surprise me with a homemade gluten-free cake. And I think the biggest thing I've taken from that experience is that my parents really showed me that I was worth the effort to keep safe. I was worth the effort to include. I was worth the effort to feel normal again. And that really taught me as I was growing up and going to college that I should look for friends and look for a partner who believe in those same values. And as a result, a lot of my inner circle is really supportive of me and my diet. So I think just emphasizing to your kids that they are worth any extra work to keep safe and to have a delicious gluten-free life is really helpful on a psychological level to realize that you're not a burden and that you should be finding people who have those same priorities.
And I'm going to jump in. So I agree with so much of that, and that's kind of what we've done with Colby as well. I will say family gatherings, school parties, all the things that you have that you feel excluded from, is just making sure that you're going above and beyond to help them navigate and be able to feel included in everything. So when you're going to a family event, whether you're asking the host that's hosting like what they're having, so you can bring, I try to bring the same exact thing for Colby or myself, that we can eat normally with everybody and be around and feel like we're all included in the same. But on the emotional and mental aspect of things, we have days where we cry about it, and we have days that we're sad about it. And I think that's normal and that's okay, because life's not always just like beautiful and amazing. I think there's definitely times that you have to sit with them and be like, it really does suck. And I'm really sorry that you have to go through this. And like, I'm here for you. Cry about it, be sad about it, and then like pick yourself up and let's move on. But like, also just sitting with them and letting them cry and be sad about it. Sometimes I don't feel like we're told that it's okay to be emotional about it, and it's definitely something to be emotional about. So I always will have those moments with Colby where we will cry, that we're frustrated that we can't eat like everybody else. And I think that has been really helpful for her to know that like I also cry about it, and I'm not hiding my feelings, that it's hard and that it's sad. So it's really good for both of us to like have that.
Is there anything else like for the 6 of us that your parents, friends, family, spouses have like done specifically that has made you feel really supported? Like a specific example?
I think just having like, oh, go ahead, Gabby.
No, you can go.
I was just going to say, even just having like a little snack container or a cabinet, something that you can know that if you open it, everything in it is gluten-free. Because I do think there is just so much mental fatigue of always having to check labels and double check the cross-contamination. So that it was so nice to just have like one safe space that I could go to and be like, okay, I know everything in here is for me.
Yeah, and I was just gonna say one of the things my friends always do is they'll do the research to find restaurants or new restaurants, so they're following so many different people too, and they'll reach out and they're like, "I found this new gluten-free restaurant you should try," or "I found this and they're really good. They have dedicated fryers." I'm like, "How do you know about the dedicated fryers?" I'm like, that makes me feel just so special that you feel so heard. So it's very nice when they go out of their way to find those little things for you.
I saw a guy had commented on one of my Instagram reels, and he was like, my celiac isn't other people's problem. And I was like, true, that's true. But if you have support, it makes the world of a difference. So if you are the parent or you are the friend of someone with celiac disease, yeah, you don't have to make it your problem, but it just it shows what kind of a person you are when you care about the needs of other people. And going along with the child aspect of it, I had Kayla with celiac on my podcast earlier this year, and she was diagnosed at the age of 8. And so her episode specifically, she talks about like how her parents dealt with that and how they taught her how to, live with celiac disease from that young age. And there are a lot of awesome Instagram accounts out there of parents who have kids younger than 10 years old, younger than 5 years old, who are navigating it. So there are resources for more parents. I know, like, Janae, you have a teenager, and that's another completely different category of child raising with celiac disease compared to a 5-year-old who, doesn't necessarily know how to advocate for themselves yet. And as the parent, you have to teach those advocacy skills, but also do it with love. And I've seen both the mom complaining that this is so hard, and that's not the best what's the word, like the best example to give to your kid, that you're constantly complaining about it, because then they're just going to grow up constantly complaining about it. It's like when a child can see their parent being like, we got this, we'll figure it out, and being positive around it is going to help in the long run.
And I think it's also important to talk about the fact that some friends and some family will never understand.
Yes.
And it's okay to let those people go. Like, I have met strangers traveling internationally who have offered to cook me a celiac safe meal, which is some things my friends in the States that I'm close with have never done for me or offered to do for me in my entire life. So just know that it happens to all of us and we all go through it, but people who care will step up to the plate and show that they care. And those are the people you want to stick around with.
Mm-hmm.
I want to second that, because I feel like that's huge. Just the people in your life that show up for you, you know who they are. You know the ones that are going to go out of their way. They're not going to say like, oh, it's so annoying that they're coming because we have to make a special meal. Like, those are not the people that you need. You need people that are going to like bring you up and support you and want to make meals for you or want to include you. Like, when you get a text, it's like, hey, just so you know, we've already prepared all this is gluten-free for you and Colby. It's like, oh, like that. Like, it just means so much more, right? When people do that. So finding your people through celiac is huge.
Yes.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, a question from Instagram. How do you handle food as a wedding guest? So for wedding events.
I feel like I've experienced every type of wedding, or being a wedding guest at every type of wedding where I was a bridesmaid, where I got to talk to the bride and be very close. I'm like, they know I have an allergen, everything's safe. But then actually just a few months ago was my first one where I was just a +1 with my dad and did not have any dietary restrictions on the RSVP. Usually I've seen those before. And so in this situation, what I did is I packed granola bars. I actually packed a sandwich in between cocktail hour. I had my sandwich. So that's been a time where I'm like, when I had no idea who the bride and groom really were, I was going in as just a +1. I did have to prepare my own meal, but a lot of times in the past, when it depends on, of course, I know like your closeness with the bride and groom too. But I've just reached out and said, hey, like, where's the venue at, or your catering company? And I've done my due diligence and I reached out to the catering company and I just asked them like what their procedures are with allergies, because I have one, and then, explain that. And then once you get to the wedding, I also, like, when you do get to have a dietary restriction meal, get to have a meal that fits your dietary restrictions. Usually it's like salmon and rice. I go to a server, whatever server I can find first, and I just ask them like, hey, I'm the person with celiac disease or food allergy, and I just wanted to know, like, are you the person I should talk to, or who could I talk to, just to make sure that my meal is ensured that this one's going to be like safe. And then usually it's them I talk to, or they'll point me to someone else. I've had it in different ways. One time I've actually gone into the back of the kitchen and I was like, hi, I'm the one with celiac. Like, how do I go about this? And it's overwhelming at first, but then once you get in there and just ask those questions, you feel a lot more calm. Asking those questions, I think, is always the most important, not just going in and assuming that the meal is going to be safe, because I've also gotten burned that way too.
I had a girl message me this week, and she was a client of mine from like 2 years ago, and she texted me and said that she got gluten at a wedding. And I was like, tell me the scenario, like what happened? And she said that she had asked for a gluten-free option, like that was an option to choose on the RSVP thing. And then the server came out and gave her bread. And after she ate it, she just was like, that just seemed like way too good to be their gluten-free bread. So she went back to talk to them, and they were like, oh yeah, it's our sourdough. Like sourdough is gluten friendly. And of course, like she's going to live and learn from that experience, because yeah, it's like, okay, can I actually look at the packaging, or when someone brings you something and you don't know for sure where it came from, it's almost always better to just be like, hey, would you mind telling me what the brand is? I'm curious. Like, this bread looks super good. I'm curious what the brand is. And then you can get more details of, oh, it's sourdough bread. Okay, sourdough bread is not celiac safe. Like, maybe it's gluten friendly for someone with a gluten intolerance, but it is not celiac safe. And so, then I'm trying to walk her through. This is her first time getting gluten since her diagnosis. And I'm trying to help her with that and stuff. So it's really easy to just be like, oh, well, I guess it's not easy as a celiac, but like anyone else that would just trust, like, oh yeah, I chose the chicken and rice, or I chose this, and you kind of just like trust. But once you have celiac disease, like you have to ask follow-up questions to make sure that you are safe. And if that means, like Gabby said, going back into the kitchen, like I know that there are a lot of people that get diagnosed with celiac disease that are introverts, and that is scary and hard for them to have to put themselves out there. And you do what's best for you. If eating beforehand is better for you because you don't want to have to put yourself in a situation where you're like, I'm bringing all this attention on myself at someone else's wedding, do whatever works best for you. But if you have the confidence and if you have the skills to call the catering company beforehand, or go to the back of the kitchen and just say, hey, I don't think I can eat the meal, but like, do you have a side salad, or do you have like a veggie tray or something that I could just grab a couple things? Like, there are always options there. It just takes practice and skill to get what you need and get the safe food that you need.
Yeah.
I'm going to chime in real quick. I wasn't part of this question, but I just, from experience, we went to a lot of weddings like the last 2 years with my daughter Colby. And as a mom, I'm like, I'm either going to eat before, and I'm not going to feel so bad about the food that's at the wedding. But as a kid going to a wedding and you can't participate in anything that's there, it's much harder. So yes, we ate before for Colby, but something that we did after is we stopped and got her something special on our way home, because then she felt like everyone else got to eat cake and they had all these treats, or they had a candy table, and it's like she didn't get to participate at all. And it's like the kids all know that, like, it's not that Colby's more special than them, but she doesn't get to be involved in everything. So to the kid situation, if you have kids, trying to go out of your way to make sure that they feel like loved and seen at events like this as well.
And I was even just quickly mention, like, I've even for weddings, like, brought my own like little cupcake when we went out of state and there was a gluten-free bakery near the wedding. Like, even just doing simple things like that to try to, like, go to Smashburger, go to your favorite restaurant and bring that food to the wedding. So again, you're making it like a special experience for yourself that is a little bit more enjoyable than if you're just like choking down granola bars. And I would also say, like, going to Lauren's point, having a partner or just a friend who's also comfortable advocating for you is really helpful, because I haven't gone to the kitchen in a wedding, but my boyfriend has, when the bride had a couple of celiac guests and she needed someone to like make sure that none of us would get sick. So that was his job. So also thinking about, like, who could I bring to this wedding that maybe has my back and makes it a little bit less isolating.
Yeah. I think that this like conversation or question applies to anything. Like you go to your friends for a girls' night or a Thanksgiving, like all of these work. And when we work with families one on one, and I know Lorin does this too, everybody does something different, right? So like for me, even though I'm on social media like talking about gluten-free, there's never an instance where in person I actually want to do that. Like in my real life, it's either my husband doing it, like I just don't enjoy those conversations. And I'm more of an introvert, so I'd rather just like pack my own food and like not say a word. But there's other people that they're like, they want to advocate, they want to bring a cupcake, they want like, there's no wrong way to do it. And so it just kind of takes trial and error. And I also think kind of to Janae's point, when it's your kid, asking them what is important for you. Is it important for you that while at the table, you're eating something? Or do you want to have something super special, on the back end? Do you want to break? Like, what is important for you? Because as a parent, how you navigate celiac might be different how your child navigates it, or if you don't have celiac, what you expect for them to be important might not be important for them. So, for example, my mom always wants to like speak up and advocate for myself, and I personally am like, don't say anything. Like, I don't want you to say anything, right? And so she would think that I would want her to speak up, and I don't. So it's just kind of different, and having that communication with whoever your partner or advocate is. So, yeah. Okay, this might open a can of worms, this next one, but we're gonna go for it. Okay, I'm very concerned with cross-contamination, aka cross-contact. Everything I've seen read has said that if you use or touch gluten, be sure to wipe down the area that you've touched. Example, counter, fridge handles, etc. Which I think there's, just as a side, I think there's a lot of fear mongering around cross contact that makes it like this huge monster. And while it is like so serious, it is manageable. Okay, anyways. So if someone were to eat a sandwich and then touch their phone or something of mine, how concerned should I be that the gluten particles were transferred?
Cross contact is definitely like really scary, but I try to keep in mind that the biggest risk factors are if it could get into my mouth. So for the example of like phone, I'm not licking my phone, so I should be fine. Like if someone with their sandwich touches it, I probably would clean it just because if they left crumbs, that's a little gross. I don't like it. But as long as something is not to the point of going directly into my mouth, or I am going to touch it and then directly like touch my gluten-free food that goes into my mouth, I'm usually not thinking about it too much.
And Gabby, you made that video of the raw chicken, which I feel like is just like
Yeah.
the perfect example of, you don't want to touch and handle things that just had raw chicken on it. So it's best practice would just be to wash your hands frequently and wash touch surfaces frequently. But yeah, I mean, if somebody just touched a sandwich and then touched my phone, I know that I'm not going to have like an autoimmune response from that in my stomach. But me personally, I would grab my phone and I would give it a little clean. Personally, for me, I don't think I'm going to get cross contact from that, but I also don't like that. So like I clean my phone every single day just because I like not having disgusting germs, like not even a gluten thing, just like a germ thing. So I think that cross contact in restaurants is things that you need to be aware of, because when a restaurant staff is cooking for you and you're not watching that, that's where you need to be more adamant in what you need at a restaurant. But like, for example, like when I go home to my parents' house, like it is a gluten-filled house. And I know that my dad made his sandwich on the counter with no paper towel under it. I know that for a fact because that's how I was raised. I know that my nieces and nephews have been digging in the pantry and eating who knows what and then touching who knows where. I just know that that's the case when I go to my parents' house. And my mom knows that that's a little stressful for me. So before I come, she cleans all the surfaces. And then when I get there, I'm not 100% sure. So sometimes I'm just like walking around talking to people and I'm just like wiping things down and stuff because I just want to make sure that I don't get sick on a weekend that I want to enjoy at my parents' house. I don't want to be the one that, gets sick. But I mean, as far as touching goes, unless you're touching something and there's like full on crumbs on your fingers and then you lick your fingers, like you're not going to get cross contaminated from that. But you could get cross contaminated from using the same mayo that your family used if they dipped their sandwich knife back into the mayo. So like those are the cross-contamination things we want to be aware of. Touching things is not going to give you an autoimmune response, but if you were to be handling flour and then like you happen to just like itch your face and then flour gets in your mouth, that's where you want to be concerned. But you know yourself well enough to know that if you're going to handle gluten, you're going to wash your hands afterwards. So just something to keep in mind. I feel like, Erin, you're more of the professional in this, like down to the cellular level, but I'm like, I know everybody has their own personal preferences on what they're comfortable with. So just do what you're comfortable with if it's going to give you anxiety.
Yeah. I think kind of what you guys are saying, like we don't even get the microbiology here, but what y'all were saying was just like you feel better when you wipe off your phone, even though logically you're like, I know that's not an issue, right? But it just feels better. And like there is that level of anxiety. And so that's perfectly fine too. But you know, the raw chicken, if you haven't watched Gabby's video, you posted it like 2 days ago, check it out. She explains like how to think about raw chicken. But also like the dilution factor is another way to think about it. Like how diluted is your phone from like the piece of bread, right? Like how much gluten is on your phone, if for the example, versus a piece of bread, very different, right? So anyways,
Can I chime in here? I used to freak out about cross-contamination. Like when I first got diagnosed, my mom bought all new pans. Like we literally had a new kitchen, and I think how the doctors spoke to me about cross-contamination made me so fearful to eat out. Like for the first couple years of my diagnosis, I don't think I went to a single restaurant. Obviously, cross-contamination is very person specific, and I will say that as you move through your journey of having celiac disease, you will learn your limits, and it's different for everybody, but like even things like a dedicated fryer, I always go for a dedicated fryer. Everyone with celiac disease should. But accidentally, one time I had a French fry from a fryer that also had gluten in it, and the server told me after I had ate just one, and I had no reaction. And it's kind of different situations like this that made me lose the fear, not completely around cross-contamination, but helped me learn my limit of like, okay, I'm probably not going to get sick if something to that extent maybe happens again. I don't really know how to explain it in maybe the correct terms, but I think as you move through your journey, you learn your limits and you become less fearful of cross-contamination. I also think traveling does that to you as well. When you're traveling internationally and there's a language barrier, you have a lot less of an idea of what's going on in the kitchens. And you kind of learn what's safe and what's not safe. But as you go through your journey, you will learn that you do not have to be as fearful about cross-contamination as you probably think that you do. And I don't want that to come off in a negative way, but I don't think we need to be so fearful about it. And I'm highly sensitive. So I don't know if you want to jump in on that, Erin. I know we've talked about this before. So that's what I'm going to say.
I think you guys nailed it. Like it is serious, but it also isn't something to be fearful of. Like we don't live in a gluten-free bubble. We have to live our life. As like raise your hand in this group if you've been gluten before. Like all of us, right? So like mistakes are gonna happen. And so I will say of the clients that I work with, the ones that are the sickest, and I mean truly the sickest, are not the sickest because they have SIBO or ulcerative colitis or hormonal issues or all these things. They're the sickest because they're so fearful of gluten. And that is so much harder to treat and heal. And a lot of it comes from misinformation, myths out there, like just they're so isolated, right? We have clients that come to us because they haven't eaten out since their diagnosis and they were diagnosed 15 years ago. Like never eaten out, right? Like you're going to be a lot more sick and scared and mentally exhausted than from any other thing that we could treat in our practice. So,
and kind of chiming in off of that, like for me personally, stress and anxiety makes me feel more sick sometimes than actually getting gluten myself. And I will say that every time I get glutened, I learn more from that situation than if I were never to get glutened. And not that I get glutened often, but when I do, it teaches me what to not do in the next situation. It teaches me to educate other people on what you could possibly get gluten by. Like I've gotten gluten, I saw a video today from matcha, and I didn't even know like that could happen. So just these little things you'll learn like as you go through your diagnosis. Don't feel guilty for it. Don't feel shameful that it happened. It's a learning lesson. You move forward from it and you take what you need away.
And like last thing of just like tied to that point, if it gets easier with time, you also come up with protocols over time where you're like, okay, every Monday or every morning I wipe down the counters. Or after pizza night with my family, I always make sure that I only use this countertop because they use the other countertop in the kitchen. So you do come up with like these protocols that you use to minimize the risk of cross contact too. So that I think that also helps it get easier with time.
For sure. Yeah, I wish there was like black and white rules of cross contact, but there isn't. Like what Casey said, there's just protocols kind of, and it's your own protocols that you create and kind of adapt and learn over time. Okay, question from Carrie. Any recommendations for probiotics for celiacs that heal the gut? I'm just going to quickly answer this one. So there's, how do I answer this quickly? I have too much information. See, not all celiacs need probiotics, right? Just because you have celiac, which is a gut disorder, does not mean you need a probiotic. Secondly, if you have a condition like bacterial overgrowth, SIBO, ulcerative colitis, IBD, any of those things, probiotics can potentially make it worse, so that would not be helpful. Thirdly is probiotics do not heal the gut. They're completely different things. Probiotics fix the bacteria in your gut, but healing the gut, more that like kind of slang, not really official medical term, that is used often, would more so be done by things like L-glutamine, mushroom root, slippery elm, those kind of things. So talking about two different things here. I will say if you're celiac, what supplements would I recommend instead? Would be a multivitamin. Everybody should be on a multivitamin. Great insurance policy, especially with celiacs. When you're first diagnosed, there's a lot higher chance of malnutrition and nutrient deficiency, so that's helpful. And then get blood work done to figure out what else you need. While some celiacs are iron deficient or B12 or D, you don't know unless you get blood work done. So don't test or don't guess, check, and then take the appropriate supplements, because just like randomly taking things that you see online can be really harmful. Okay. Liz, besides eating gluten-free, what are the most important things we can do to support autoimmune compromised body from celiac? So like not gluten-free, what other things do you guys find that helps just like your healthy life?
So I feel like I worked with you, Erin, really closely on this, especially when I was dealing with bacterial overgrowth. For me personally, in my journey, when I got diagnosed with celiac disease and I went gluten-free, I continued to feel more sick. My symptoms got worse. I also had Crohn's disease, I didn't know at the time, and I also have IBS, had E. coli, SIBO. I had a lot of things going on, but I think that's really common for a lot of people that have celiac disease. When you look at your health as a whole, diet is just one aspect of how you can help your body. There's stress control. What is your everyday life looking like? Are you around toxic people? Are you constantly in a state of anxiety because of your work life? You really have to look at all aspects and learn to control your stress levels, because your stress levels are directly correlated to how your gut is feeling, and your gut is connected to your mind. Besides stress control, how are you moving your body? Are you constantly putting your body under more inflammation and more stress by doing high intensity workouts? I know I used to do that, especially because I had severe body dysmorphia with always being bloated every day, and I thought that if I worked out harder, then it would help my bloating go away. But that actually made me feel more sick, and I didn't know that at the time. I was really young and innocent. Now I stick to things like Pilates and hot yoga, and I have never felt better in my life. So you need to look at holistic healing as a whole, and medicine can be one aspect. Your diet can be another aspect. Movement is another aspect. Stress control is another aspect. You can get really nitty gritty and go into all of these different areas, but pay attention to your symptoms. If you eat gluten-free and you feel fine, leave it at that. Like, you're doing good. If you continue to eat gluten-free and you're still feeling sick, you have to look at different aspects, get second opinions with your GI doctors, work with a dietitian like Erin. She can look at bacterial overgrowth and so many different things that's going on in your body, but it's really not like a one thing fits all. Everyone's body is different, and how you heal your body is going to be different than the person sitting next to you, even if you have the same diagnosis.
I think that's an important conversation. I want to kind of get a group consensus on this. When you went gluten-free, obviously initially there's like a learning curve, but once you are gluten-free, with the exception of like being glutened, do you feel normal? Raise your hand, yes, or like thumbs up, yes, thumbs down, no.
I do.
Thumbs down,
But
no?
I think that's complicated because it took time for me to heal. Like it was
Yes.
a long period of time before I
Yep.
felt better. It wasn't
Mhm.
like I ate gluten-free and all of a sudden I felt better. I mean, I was months before I felt better. So yeah, that's why I was a no.
Yeah. And I know you're sharing now on your journey of Hashimoto's, right? And
Well,
so,
that's why I'm like, Lorin, thank you, because stress is like my whole December was stress. Like my husband ruptured Achilles, my son broke his femur. I was a full-time caretaker, and that stress took a toll on my body. And now I'm dealing with more autoimmune diseases, and like my cortisol levels are through the roof, my adrenal glands are through the roof, and like it's all due to stress. So like, Lorin, thank you, because nobody talks about that side of it. It
Yeah.
is so important to take care of ourselves and our bodies in a different way than just eating gluten-free. Take the toxic people out of your life. Learn to slow down, meditate, like be more with yourself. Like that is huge. And we live in a world where it's just go, 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 go. There's no way we're going to heal our bodies if we're in a constant state of stress at all times.
yeah. And imagine too, Janae, like if how you are feeling, you constantly blamed it on gluten, which I think a lot of people do, right? They think I need to be more gluten-free. I need to be better. I must be getting glutened. And they're like, I live in a gluten-free home. I know, like, all your scenarios, like, you know what you're doing, but people still think, well, I must not be gluten-free enough. And so then they're missing pursuing other things. They're missing pursuing, like you did, the cortisol, the Hashimoto's, for Lorin, the SIBO, the IBD. Like they're missing figuring out those other things. So my like biggest thing that I tell people, like if you're celiac and you're gluten-free and it's been a while and you know you're safe and it's been months and months, like to give yourself time to recover, if you're still feeling sick, you have to look for something else because going more gluten-free isn't the option. Anyways, Casey, sorry, go.
Yeah, and I was just going to mention, since I know a previous question had asked about therapy, and it kind of ties into this conversation as well, since I only started therapy like regularly, I think late last year, and it has been extremely helpful. And you often can get it covered by your insurance. So I feel like that's something that a lot of times we don't think a celiac diagnosis is big enough to deserve therapy or to need therapy. But a lot of us do go through medical traumas, through other complications, through the stress of getting a diagnosis and all of those kind of things. So I do think therapy can also be a helpful way to treat your body beyond just a gluten-free diet.
And just to chime in there are therapists that specialize in autoimmune disease health and specifically celiac disease. And I started therapy when I got diagnosed with celiac disease at the time. And I remember bringing up my diagnosis and being like, oh, but like, I don't think we should even talk about it. Like, it's not that big of a deal. And I remember my therapist being like, no, no, no. This is actually why you're feeling all of these emotions. Like, I had no idea that and like anything emotional could have been connected to my diagnosis. And it wasn't until I started talking about it that I was able to heal from those things. And even now, today, if you watch my page, I'm always a roller coaster of emotions. But it's something you have to work through and you have to talk about it, because if you don't, other people are going to go through it alone and they're not going to know that those feelings are normal when they really are.
Okay, Amanda asks, how do you go about ordering, or how do you go about using DoorDash or online ordering? She usually calls the place I'm ordering from and alert them of my order. But what do you guys suggest?
I'll share my experience because every single time that I have ordered at a restaurant, doing an online order and not being in person, I have felt like I've gotten cross-contaminated or actually glutened. I've actually gotten gluten before, and then other times I'm like, I feel like I'm getting itchy. I have dermatitis herpetiformis, so my reaction from gluten is like hives on my hands, hives on my lips, hives on my eyelids. It's very unpleasant. And that's my tall tale sign of more cross-contamination than just like maybe they touched it or something. Like I have my own protocols, right? Like I know my limits and I know where I'm at on my scale of cross contact. But for me personally, unless I'm ordering out at a restaurant that I've eaten at in store multiple times, I wouldn't order DoorDash from a restaurant that I've never eaten at before. That's my own personal preference. But if it's somewhere that I eat at regularly, and if I call ahead to place an order and I know their protocols because I've eaten in person, I feel better doing that. But also, I just don't like ordering DoorDash because I want to eat my food fresh. Like I don't want to eat my fries cold. I don't want to eat my burger 10 minutes after it was made. Like that's annoying to me. So I ordered my food last night at a restaurant. I had to order at a different restaurant and then I took my food to the restaurant that the rest of my family was eating at for a birthday dinner. And by the time I got to that restaurant, it was like maybe a 7 minute wait from the time I got my food to the next restaurant, and I sat down and I put it all out on a brown paper bag and my fries were cold and I'm like, why did I just buy these fries? Because they're gross now. Like they're cold, they're not enjoyable. So I'm a little bit picky in that way too. Like I don't like doing DoorDash for that reason, but also when you can't see something being prepared, it's a little bit riskier. Like Chipotle, for example, like when you go into the store, you can like see if they put the ladle on the tortilla before the person before you, or if they didn't change their gloves when they were preparing someone's pita and now they're preparing your salad. Like when you're at the restaurant, you have so much more control of being able to say, "Oh, I'm so sorry. Can you make mine again? Like you didn't change your gloves." But when you're ordering DoorDash, like yes, you can say, "Hey, I have an allergy." But you don't necessarily get to watch it happen if it's a fast casual place, if you're doing DoorDash. So I think it's based on your own personal preference. If you have eaten at that restaurant many times and you know that they have protocols in place, then maybe you can trust. But also, part of celiac disease is taking risks too. Like sometimes I take risks and sometimes it pays off and sometimes it doesn't. So, not like I'm putting myself at severe risk of anything, but sometimes I do. Like I don't know if any of you else do that, where you like are like, I'm going to take a little risk here and see what happens and see what I learn from this. And sometimes it's okay, I'm definitely never doing that again. Or it's like, I had a good experience and maybe I can do it again.
Kind of chiming in off the risk factor. Again, I travel a lot. You cannot travel without taking risks. I think 75% of traveling internationally when you can't even speak the language is taking risks. But the biggest part of that is being able to usually watch them do it. Like with street food, I can usually see like what's there. I would make sure it's usually all gluten-free, or if there is minimal cross contact, like you have to take a risk sometimes. Again, that's all personal preference. But when ordering online, I usually will not do DoorDash or like Uber Eats. I will only order online if I can do it directly through the restaurant and speak to someone that works at the restaurant. Just because I don't know, I have more trust in that way. And or I'll just order from a 100% gluten-free place because that makes me feel better. But I'm kind of similar to Lorin. I would prefer to go in person, talk to someone, double check and verify when it's complete that it's gluten-free. But if you do order online, I think even when you get your order, if it is the restaurant delivering it to you, just be like, "Hi, I just want to make sure when it arrives that this is the gluten-free version." Call and check, make sure that they got your allergen. But again, with online delivery, it's just so hard to know like what went on behind the scenes. So again, it's a personal preference if you choose to do that.
Yep. Okay, Kelly Melanson, sorry. How have you found the best way to make sure meds prescribed are gluten-free / over the counter? Yeah. Lorin, you want to jump in on that one?
Sorry. Yes. So this is hard because I don't take any medication that besides insulin. Like I don't take a medication. So I feel like I don't have a lot of experience in this, but I know that you can call and you can ask. I had Kendra, who has the gluten detection dog, on my podcast, and her dog can like smell for less than 10 parts per million in her medication. So she like has her dog smell all of her medication, and she has found gluten in her medications from her dog. So when I personally haven't had experience with finding gluten in my medication, but also I like so appreciate when medication is labeled gluten-free. And I remember specifically like before I was diagnosed with celiac, I was walking down the medicine aisle and I saw like ibuprofen and then it said gluten-free underneath it. And how bratty of me. I was like, why would anyone need to label this gluten-free? Like, this is so weird. And I remember saying that to my husband. And now I'm like, thank you to whoever labels their medications gluten-free. I used to think it was like so dumb because I'm like, what? Of course there wouldn't be gluten in that. But then it's like, no, then you enter this world and you're like, there's gluten and it can be hidden anywhere. So I would say one, just to outsource that resource to Kendra, that she's a great resource if you don't follow her on Instagram. Suki PWD is her Instagram handle, and she has her dog test medication. So she has a long list of approved medications that she has on her website. So where, yeah, I just don't have the experience, but there are resources out there. Sorry, I feel like I'm not super helpful in this category.
And I'm kind of with you. I don't take a ton of medications, but the pharmacy, all you have to do is talk to them thoroughly and just say, like, okay, I just got prescribed this medication. Is it gluten-free, or is there something that's similar? Like, if it's not gluten-free, they can give you something that's similar that is gluten-free. So when you get to the pharmacy, if you've been prescribed something, you just need to ask all the questions. You just need to be aware. Like, also, you can talk to your doctor that's prescribing it and say to your doctor, like, I need the medication that's gluten-free for this version. Like, if this one's not gluten-free, how do we make sure that it's gluten-free? Because I don't want to get more sick on a prescription that's supposed to help me. And then with just over the counter, it's just looking at the labels, reading, and making sure that you're buying a product that is labeled gluten-free. I don't trust things like that are not labeled. Yeah.
I actually just had I was on steroids just a month ago for my sciatic nerve, and at my doctor's appointment, we were going through what steroid they were going to prescribe me. And so then once we talked about my celiac disease, because it was just a PA, not my actual doctor at this point. And so I was like, oh, I have celiac. She's like, oh my gosh, I am so glad you said that. Let me look at this. And then she just did a whole run through. So always say you have celiac with everything that you're putting in your mouth. So
And
yes, absolutely.
Some doctors and pharmacists might not know. So if anybody watching has had a bad experience, know that you're not alone. Doctors are not celiac experts, right? They know, like, they're going to be a specialty in their specialty or a very generalized. They do not know off the top of their head all the ingredients that mean gluten, right? And so they might need a little bit of coaching too. Medications are one of the hardest things. So for anybody watching, like, you have a lot of grace because it's tricky. The labels are not super clear. But gluten would live in the inactive ingredients, in inactive ingredients. The active ingredient is the actual medication property. That does not contain gluten. It's the inactive ingredients, binders, fillers, those kind of things. In our celiac app, we have all the over-the-counter medication, allergy, kids, like suspension drinks and stuff, cold, flu, all those are listed that we have verified to be celiac safe in the app, as well as a tool for you to determine if your over-the-counter medication is gluten-free or not. And so that kind of empowers you guys to be able to also determine it for yourself.
Someone just said in the chat, glutenfreedrugs.com is a helpful medication resource. So
yeah, and that's not always active though, because we tried to use it like a few days ago.
So it's not always active?
Yeah, like it was down when we were trying a few days ago. Normally, yes, I would recommend that one, but sometimes it's not up to date.
It's iffy. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, next question from Instagram. How do you navigate fructose and lactose intolerance when you also have celiac? I'm gonna broaden this to just say, how do you navigate other food sensitivities, allergies, intolerances, whatever, with celiac? And this is something that in my practice, obviously, we deal with a lot. I personally am also dairy-free, and I have been since my diagnosis. I'll let Janae answer more of like the practical aspect, but from a medical aspect, a lot of these people are diagnosed with lactose intolerance when they're celiac, when really it's a dairy intolerance. And so going lactose free is not enough. Also, sometimes a dairy or a lactose intolerance is temporary while your digestive tract is healing from gluten. So just because you need to be dairy free initially, or you don't always tolerate dairy initially, that doesn't mean that's always going to be the case. And what's really scary for people when they're told you have an intolerance, avoid these foods or whatever, they think that it needs to be the level of celiac, right? Like where we have to avoid cross contact and all those things. Unless it is an allergy, that's different. But if you have an intolerance, you don't tolerate FODMAP, garlic, onion, like those kind of things, everybody's going to have a different level of sensitivity and tolerance to it. So don't get like so scared that you're like, oh, now I have to deal with celiac, yes, and lactose intolerance. The lactose intolerance gives you a little bit more grace. While it is scary, it is a lot to learn. It doesn't always mean it is forever, and typically some people will have more tolerance to that. I will also say, if you are somebody that has a ton of food intolerances, that is not necessarily normal. That's kind of a red flag and a sign to your body that something else is going on, whether it's celiac is causing further inflammation or symptoms, whether it's something like your thyroid's going off, or you have SIBO, IBS, any of those kind of things, that's something to be addressed. So food sensitivities really are more of a symptom than an underlying condition. So I just recommend explore further and kind of get some more support with that. Some will be like you just have that forever, but if there's a lot of them or you're reacting to a lot of foods, that's not normal. And so we got to dive deeper into that. But Janae, what kind of like practical, because I know you deal with that too.
Yeah, no, two things. When I first got diagnosed with celiac, my doctor was incredible. And he also told me to go dairy free at the same time because my gut needed to heal. And if I was having dairy, that I couldn't really heal if I was just going gluten free. And so I don't think a lot of doctors talk about that. And so when I went gluten free, I went dairy free as well for the first 3 months. And then I slowly introduced dairy back into my diet to see how it affected me. Like we get to control what happens, right? So if you slowly introduce it and you're like, I'm not feeling so great on this product, you know that is probably not something, or you go dairy free for longer and then reintroduce it again. But taking it out of your diet and then bringing it back in after your gut has healed is something that I would definitely try. And then just barely with getting diagnosed with Hashimoto's, I did the reactive blood to the foods that I'm having a reactive. I wish I would have brought the paper in here to show you. I'm reacting to so much food right now because my gut is so unhealthy right now because of the stress and the cortisol levels. They have completely destroyed my gut lining. And so now I'm like actually having, even though I'm gluten free, and that's what I said to the doctor, I'm like, I'm healthy. I eat healthy. I'm like, what do you mean I have this and I have to take out this out of my diet? Like I eat really good. But it's because of the stress. It's because of the overhaul of my gut. And basically, I'm now dealing with leaky gut again. And it has nothing to do with celiac disease. And so I think that's a huge thing that I was very unaware of. And so right now I'm doing what's called the anti-inflammatory protocol. I'm removing almost everything out of my diet. And then I will slowly introduce the reactive things back into my diet to see how they affect me. I think it's a lot of trial and error with food that you have intolerances to or things that you're allergic to. It's navigating, pulling things out, reintroducing, and see how it affects you. And it's not fun. I'm not going to say it's great. So.
Okay, thumbs up, thumbs down. Do you eat, or middle, do you eat dairy? Okay. Thumbs up, thumbs down. Do you eat soy? Janae, do you normally not on the AIP?
And I'm like, right now I'm not.
Yeah, but normally. Do you eat FODMAPs?
Okay, that's not right now, but normally.
Normally, yeah. Do your normal because AIP, you're
okay.
gonna thumb down everything. Do you eat fructose? That's another common intolerance. Anyone fructose intolerance? Lorin, Sam?
I choose.
Yeah, okay. What's another one that we avoid or have avoided in the past? I want to show that like everybody's diet is different. There is no one like celiac, like everybody is celiac, right? Well, all thumbs like super thumbs down gluten, but everything else is like kind of one of these. Anything else we want to share?
Maybe corn. I get a lot of questions about corn.
Yeah, with corn,
But I would just say, like, yeah, I think everyone's tolerances are different, and you kind of learn as you're able to hopefully reintroduce things, like what foods are really high triggers for you, how much of each food you can maybe eat, and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And kind of to chime in here, before I worked with Erin with my bacterial overgrowth, I literally could not eat anything without waking up like I was like 6 months pregnant. Like I used to have photo shoots with my stomach. I was like, wow, I already know what I look like when I'm pregnant. And now I can pretty much eat everything except for, yeah, like fruit. I only have like 1 to 2 servings a day because it's just sensitive. But yeah, it will change over your entire journey. So if food reacts to you that much and you are feeling sick every single day, don't let a doctor tell you that's normal, because I have been told that that's normal. And it's not normal, and you should seek medical attention.
I'm going to chime in one more time.
Oh.
I think it's crucial that you are looking at more than just your celiac. I think because of just what I'm going through right now, like it got to the point where my husband had to like carry me in the evening because I couldn't walk because my joints hurt so badly. And like I just kept pushing it away because I was a caretaker. I was taking care of everybody. Once everyone's healed, I'll feel better too. It's just because I'm tired. It's just because I'm not getting enough sleep. No, like we need to take a look inward way more often and say, and like take care of our bodies and ourselves way more. With meditation, with yoga, with all of that kind of stuff. I think it's very, very important. And I can testify to that because I've been in it and I haven't been taking care of my body. So there's just so much more to healing.
Yeah, there is no like, I have celiac, so I should feel sick. Like, take that out of anybody's vocabulary because you shouldn't, right? Like, yes, at diagnosis, like, yes, there's gonna, yes, if you get gluten, those kind of things, but yeah. Okay, I received a scope. My biopsy came back probably celiac, which I hate when that happens, people. I'm a wife and a mom of 3, which we all know means busy life. I have so many health issues and I want to switch to a gluten-free diet, but I'm intimidated and nervous. What is the best place to begin?
So I can kind of speak to my own experience, because when I got diagnosed, I was only 17, and I didn't even know like what was gluten-free. So the first thing I did was work with a dietitian because they usually provide recipes that are like really simple to follow. And it just helped me learn like I can eat things like chicken, rice, and a vegetable, like just super simple. But we're also really grateful because there are meal delivery services nowadays that are gluten-free friendly and celiac friendly. Personally, I use Hungary and I've never had an issue with them. And it provides ingredients to make meals for the entire week. And some weeks I just simply cannot be cooking because I just don't have the time. And it can be more pricey to do it, but if you're thinking your time is more valuable and you just need quick options that are gluten-free, I would say go that route. It's more important that if you are celiac, you're eating gluten-free than just eating gluten because you're nervous and you don't know where to start. So I think that would be my suggestion.
For me, I'm gonna say the probable celiac. So Colby at 5 years old, I took her into the hospital several times because she was having serious debilitating migraines and she would throw up. We went to doctor after doctor after doctor, and I had just been diagnosed with celiac that year. And I didn't know much about it. I didn't understand it. Her celiac panel came back negative, and then 5 years later, she was diagnosed with celiac. At that time, I didn't know to go in and do the scope, and that's what we should have done. If you are probably celiac, you probably have celiac disease and you should take like immediate action because eating gluten is only going to destroy your gut for even longer. When I went into my doctor and he told me I had celiac and he gave me all the list of information and everything, I literally went home and just decided like it's not going to get any easier if I wait a week or a month to go gluten-free. I'm starting today. And that was like my mental mindset. Even with this anti-inflammatory, it was like I got diagnosed last week. I got more blood work and it's like, okay, I'm just diving in because that's the only way my brain knows how to work is just doing it. Yes, it's going to be overwhelming. Yes, there's going to be a lot, but there is so many resources out there now that there didn't used to be. So following people online, like all of us, and having those resources, I feel like just starting and doing it that's all you can do, really.
One thing I did like when I was diagnosed, which I know when you have a busy life and a lot of people do, but I went to so many grocery stores around my city. Like I never went to grocery stores this much. So this obviously now I always do, but health food stores first, because I know they have a ton of gluten-free stuff, allergy-free stuff. So it took a couple days to actually go through and like visit all these stores, but I would take my time. I'm like, okay, there's gluten-free food here. So I know in the future, okay, these are my places that I can shop at. And that kind of sped up my process moving forward when I had my busy life. So like, I just need to go to a grocery store, but I don't know which one, but like taking that time right in the beginning helped me like narrow down like where I can go and with the most options.
And I'd say too, like it can be helpful, similar to what Lorin mentioned, of sticking to more naturally gluten-free foods at first, and then you could start adding on some of these new products that you're trying like on the side. So you could have, chicken, rice, and veggies with a gluten-free roll on the side. Because honestly, it will take you a little bit of time to find the products that you really like. So especially when I was newly diagnosed, it was really helpful to know that, like, okay, even if this roll is a hockey puck and I hate it, I still have the rest of my meal. Like, I'm still going to be eating. So it can be kind of a helpful way to make sure that you're still getting food, you know that it's safe, while still trying new gluten-free products until you figure out what you like.
And I think it's also important that you're not gonna know everything that's gluten-free in like where it is in the grocery store the first day you get diagnosed. I remember I went to the grocery store with my mom my first day that I was diagnosed, and I was like so overwhelmed. I was like, oh my God, now suddenly everything I eat today has to be gluten-free. It wasn't. I took like a week of time to like slowly introduce the gluten-free diet because one, I had no idea what gluten was in, and two, it was just so overwhelming. So I think give yourself grace. You will be 100% gluten-free at some point, but if that takes you a week to do, it's okay. Like, don't be so hard on yourself.
Also with that is I was eating gluten, not knowing I was eating gluten, because things that you think are naturally gluten-free, then you look at the label and you're like, what the freak? This isn't gluten-free. What? So it's going to take time to, like she said, to navigate what actually is gluten-free. Because like I had a bowl of Rice Krispie cereal, I remember, and I had no idea that barley malt was not gluten, right? And I was like, but I was also in my healing phase, so I wasn't getting super sick when I was eating the gluten because my body was still trying to heal. But it's just a lot of reading labels and learning like what those hidden ingredients are.
Yeah, like there's definitely gonna be mistakes in the beginning and like do everything to avoid it within reason, but like give yourself a lot of grace. Like the beginning is hard. And so, you know, to put this expectation that like you're gonna leave the doctor's office and like tomorrow everything's gonna be perfect and 100% gluten-free isn't realistic. Some people, like Janae said, are gonna jump right into it. Some people are going to take a little bit more time. Don't take too much time. Don't take a year to do it, right? But you know, with a reasonable timeline that feels good for you is appropriate. But it's a lot to learn. You know, even as I wasn't a dietitian when I was diagnosed, but I had a lot of family members that were gluten free and knew a lot about being gluten free already from like decades of watching family members do it, and even still it was like, wait, now, like, how do I shop for being gluten free? Like, what is this? So it's challenging.
One thing I just want to quickly say on this topic, I preach this on my Instagram. If you get diagnosed with celiac disease, do not do it alone. Do not take on the task alone. It will take you much longer to figure it out if you just are like, oh, I'll just figure this out. I don't need to burden anyone else with this. That's not the right choice. Doing it by yourself is going to cause you more stress, more anxiety, more fear, more worry. And you are going to, it's just going to get worse if you do it alone. And I'm just going to put a plug for what I do as a consultant, because I would have killed to have had a consultant when I was first diagnosed to just literally tell me where to grocery shop. What did the groceries look like? What were the brands that you liked? What were the apps that you used? What's a good Facebook page to join? Like, there are people that have done this, like all of us, for years, and we have the resources that have taken us years to learn that we can give you so that you're not putting all the pieces together and it takes you a year and a half to 2 years to feel better. Like, my goal in my client calls is I want you to be feeling confident in your celiac disease within 6 months. Like, it took me 2 years, and it shouldn't take anyone 2 years. I don't want it to take you 2 years. If you're, I know in this original question, she said, I feel intimidated and overwhelmed. You will feel intimidated and overwhelmed if you do it by yourself. So reach out to people who get resources. And if that means you have to pay for that resource, that payout will be way worth it because you will have someone to teach you and help you and hold your hand.
Yeah. And avoid Facebook groups. Like, there's just so much misinformation, and like, honestly, the crazy of the celiac world lives in Facebook groups. That's honestly why I got into this. I was a sports dietitian. I never thought I would do celiac. And I saw one celiac Facebook group and I was like, these people don't know what they're talking about. There's so much misinformation. And I'm like, let me help you. And then everybody was like, whoa, somebody knows what they're talking about. And here we are. So be mindful of Facebook groups. Okay. I'm going to jump around a few questions, ladies. So, okay. So, this is from Heidi. So she was diagnosed with celiac 9 months ago, and she's the only one in her house that's gluten-free. She's kept her family on the same food and the same diet. Could this be harming her? / let's share any tips for a shared kitchen. So really quick, show of hands, who lives in a 100% gluten-free home? Lorin? Okay. Who is the only gluten-free person in their home? Okay. And then who has like a mixed home? Like, okay. Um, well, I guess I'll jump in and kind of answer this. So I lived in a range of homes when I was first diagnosed. I was the only person gluten-free in my home, myself and my like immediate family. Then I went off to college, and for 4 years I lived in a sorority house with 18 others. So I've had like 100 different roommates, and I was the only celiac ever, in a very messy college kitchen. And I was able to maintain safety then. Then I lived on my own, and obviously it was all gluten-free. And now I live with my husband, and we're like kind of gluten-free, depending on the kids and whoever we have. So I will say that there is misinformation again on usually Facebook groups saying that you have to be in a gluten-free kitchen to keep yourself safe. And I think just by the show of hands, we've shown like that absolutely does not need to be true. It really depends on the situation, right? So it depends on things like budget and other family members. Are they willing to go gluten-free? Are they not? You know, sometimes they are, sometimes they're not. The support level may be different. It might be different on your comfort level. If you're newly diagnosed and you want, like Lorin, like you want everybody to be on the same page, you want your home to be 100% safe, great. Or if you're still learning what your protocols are, great. But I think there is no right or wrong way to do it. I mean, a wrong way would be to have gluten in your home and eat it. But beyond that, like as long as you are able to put those protocols in place, whether that is you have your own gluten-free counter, you have your own gluten-free shelf, as a family, you all eat gluten-free meals, and then, you know, I don't know, everyone else kind of does their own thing. There's really no like wrong way to do it. It's more just a matter of like your family situation. I think all 6 of us could explain our kitchens and it would look different. My home, it's myself, my husband, my 2 like toddler babies. And then we also have a lot of people, our nannies here often. My dad lives close by, my mother-in-law lives close by, and I'm the only person that's gluten-free. So in terms of like meals, all of our family meals and all of our meal prepped meals are gluten-free. But my husband and my dad do eat like frozen meals, so like frozen burritos and those kind of things that are easy for them when I'm like kitchen's closed, I'm not cooking, that they can easily eat, as well as snacks for both my husband and the toddler, that are not gluten-free, that they eat in the house freely, basically. That's our setup.
The reason I'm 100% gluten-free house is because I do 100% of the cooking. So I want my house to be safe because my kids are little. My kids are little enough that like, I mean, I've been training little like advocate kids. I've been training them, and my kids are very much like, we go somewhere and my kids are like, Mom, they said that this is gluten-free. And I'm like, you don't have to have a gluten-free. And she's like, I know, but you could have it. Like my kids are very aware of my needs. But I'm only gluten-free because my kids are just too little to not be trusted to make a mess and touch everything and have jam hands everywhere. Like they're just too little. Like, you know, I've got a 7 and a 5-year-old, and they can't make their own food besides like, you know, they could, like they can make toast and they can make pour a bowl of cereal, but I'm like, they're just not quite old enough yet. And I do anticipate when they're older that we could save money by having gluten bread, and they could make their own sandwiches, but we have protocols in place for that. Maybe we have a gluten counter instead of a gluten-free counter. It's like everything is gluten-free, but this is the space where the gluten can be prepared. But I just choose to have that way because I'm the main cook in the house and I'm preparing all of the meals, and I don't want to have to do things twice. That's just my own personal preference. But I do anticipate when my kids get older that it will probably look a little different. And like my husband sometimes will like bring takeout home, and it's gluten takeout, and that's fine with me because he's an adult and he like knows how to clean up after himself, and he'll like eat at the kitchen table, and he'll put it on a plate and have a paper towel and eat, and then he cleans it up and then he washes his hands, and it's like, that's fine. Like I'm fine with that. It's just at the stage of life that I'm in with my kids, it's just easiest for us to be 100% gluten-free home, but everyone else can eat gluten outside the home, and I'm fine with that. I don't mind. We're just hand washing family, and we wash our hands after we eat, and that's just how we do things. But I'm going to go back to the question real quick. Could it be harming me? Oh, she was saying like, could it be harming me? The places where having a blended home could be harming you are probably things that other people are doing that you're not seeing is happening, like the cross-contamination with condiments or using the same butter for their bread and your bread, or it's things like that, that's where the cross contact comes into. But if you're the one preparing the meals and you know what's happening and you're very conscious of that, chances are you're not going to you're not going to gluten yourself if you're the one preparing the food, but it's the things that the other people are doing in your house that you're not seeing, that I guess that's where risk could be, that it could be harming you. Like if they're baking and they're using your KitchenAid and it's spinning and there's flour going everywhere, like that's where you're putting yourself at risk. But if you're supervising things and you know what's being cooked, and or you've taught your children or your spouse, like, okay, if you're going to eat this, like this is the protocol we're going to follow. Like you need to clean up after yourself and here's how. So it's possible 100% to live in a blended home, but people need to be like trained and know what to do if gluten is kind of going everywhere.
Yeah.
And I
I'm
will
gonna chime in.
I was gonna say, you have the biggest family with all the
Yeah, that's why I'm like, I'm gonna chime in real quick.
Please jump in.
Yeah, we have a family of 7, and I can't like afford to be a completely gluten-free home, nor would I ever ask my family to eat gluten-free bread because it's terrible. But the thing that I learned is after Colby got diagnosed, what I was doing was the same thing as you. I was making my meal prepped meals, and then I would cook my family their separate meals, and I would eat my meal prepped meals. It was so exhausting on my brain and my body. And then when Colby got diagnosed, and I was like, okay, the whole family's just gonna eat gluten-free. And now what we do is like the whole family, every meal is gluten-free. But we have snacks and normal bread for the family. But I would say to stress again is take away those meals that you're cooking for them and just make everything gluten-free for the family when you're cooking meals and food. And then the extra stuff, they can still have the gluten, but like I just feel like it was so much on my brain and my mind all the time where I was like, okay, I have to make sure I have food, and then I'm going to cook everyone else something separate. And even right now with the anti-inflammatory diet, like I'm doing that right now again, and I can't believe I did it for 6 years before Colby was diagnosed, where I'm like, that's a lot. Like I'm in the kitchen all day long, and I have teenagers, and it's just a lot. So for your mental health, just cook all the same food for everybody. They're not going to tell the difference. Like if you're cooking gluten-free, I promise they're not going to tell a ton of difference in your meals.
And I was going to say, I've lived in 3 different types. Well, I've had a shared kitchen in the beginning of my diagnosis, and I was so strict. I remember even making a video about it, which I'm like now shamefully embarrassed of, because I had everything separate and I was so anal about it. I was like, as soon as I saw somebody put takeout on the top of the fridge, I was like, you guys are going to get me so sick. And I did feel sick all the time there. Then I moved into by myself, lived alone, 100% gluten-free, was totally fine. Now I live with roommates again, and I have a roommate who makes sourdough bread, and I've lived there for like a year and a half now, never been sick, because we did have the right protocols where I'm like, her flour is on the bottom shelf in a Ziploc bag just so it doesn't spill and get anywhere. I have like a little separate area or like up on top for little things. Like it's so easy. Like we still share so many of the same utensils, same pots and pans now. And it's just, I always laugh about this because I'm like, in the beginning, I had everything separate and I was getting more sick than I am now having more shared items with them. So it's a lot of mental stuff too. Like once you realize what you can and can't share, then it makes it a lot easier too. Just to like, okay, it's like stress takes over so much of your mind with that stuff that it makes you feel a lot more sick when you're like, oh no, soap and water is like the magical key to getting rid of gluten.
The stress and anxiety will make you feel like you've got gluten. Like it'll make you more sick than the gluten.
100%.
Okay, question from Janae. My symptoms aren't horrible when I eat gluten. I'm gluten-free because I have celiac, but I'm tempted to sometimes cheat and eat something I know my body can't have. What are the long-term effects of gluten with celiac disease? I'm gonna take the medical question really quick. Long-term effects. So I will say, regardless of your symptoms do not indicate damage, severity of celiac. That's not a thing. You either have it or you don't. It's like you're either pregnant or you're not. You're not like kind of pregnant. So you have everyone, if you're diagnosed with celiac, you have it. And your protocols, like we've all talked about, are the same, right? Like you should be following the same gluten-free diet that somebody with the most extreme symptoms are. Of course, everybody has that free will to like kind of make it their own, like we've all discussed, but regardless of symptoms, you should still be following a very strict gluten-free diet. So asymptomatic doesn't really matter. It doesn't indicate that you have any less damage or anything. So yes, you still want to be gluten-free. Long-term effects, typically effects of damage are secondary, right? So things like malnutrition is the biggest one. And so that comes from your body not being able to absorb nutrients. So that's going to look like it could be weight loss or weight gain. It can be mostly nutrient deficiencies. So, your B vitamins, your vitamin D, all of those that are really important for other functions. So it can then create things like nerve disorders from not enough vitamin B12 and those kind of things. We also got a lot of questions this morning that I didn't get to add to this, but fertility was a big question. So does celiac impact fertility? And when it is mismanaged or it is undiagnosed, meaning like you're not following a gluten-free diet or you're cheating or you're not diligent or you're newly diagnosed, it can affect fertility. As a secondary cause, right? So it's hard to get pregnant or as a male to assist in that effort if you have nutrient deficiencies, right? And so that can cause issues with sperm count and egg count and quality and quantity and all of those kind of things. So yes, those are the long-term effects. If you have celiac, be gluten-free.
I know, I feel I'm more symptomatic, so I'm always like, I can't have any gluten. I know now once I started feeling healthy again, but I have some friends who are asymptomatic and they come to me with the same thing where they're like, how do you not want to just eat it? And one thing I would say is just like the education of celiac disease, learning about celiac disease and the true effects of it. One book that I read, and it took me almost like a year to read because I had to keep putting it down because I'm like, this is my body. It's Celiac Disease by Dr. Peter Green. And he's just like going through the long-term effects of what celiac disease can do. And even looking through my family history, like I have a lot of family with like dementia or they passed away because of colon and stomach cancer and they never got diagnosed with celiac. But now I think in my head, I'm like, oh my gosh, once you start to really realize those long-term effects, you're like, okay, now I see why I'm eating gluten-free. Even if you don't feel it in the moment, think about how you want to feel at 60 years old and 70 years old.
Erin, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm going to just say this real quick because I've had, unfortunately, several people reach out to me that have been undiagnosed with celiac for so long because they were asymptomatic, and it was terminal cancer, stomach cancer, colon cancer, and due to undiagnosed celiac. So I always tell people, like, the result for not eating gluten-free is your health. Like, you'll lose everything.
Yeah. Yes, that is true. So there is a higher risk compared to the general population for different digestive cancers. When it is undiagnosed for an extended period of time, or you were diagnosed and you just threw caution to the wind and did not follow a gluten-free diet at all, then you have an increased chance of cancers compared to the general population. That doesn't include things like all of us, we raised our hand, like have we been glutened? Yes. That doesn't necessarily increase your chance of cancers unless you were like straight up eating gluten on a regular basis. Very different. And like eating a slice of pizza and getting cross contact, the amount of gluten is severely different. So yeah, definitely there is that increased risk. I would say it's a much higher increased risk, almost a guarantee that if you have celiac and you don't follow the diet, you're going to have malnourishment, which leads to other chronic issues.
Yeah.
You shared your story about that at your diagnosis. And what was the other thing I was going to say? I'm blanking.
Well, I was going to say not only like when you're constantly cheating or frequently cheating or even infrequently cheating, like if it's once a month you cheat, like that's still detrimental to you. Like, and when you do that, your body goes into fight or flight mode. You're having an autoimmune response. Your body is attacking its own cells. And maybe you don't feel anything happening, and maybe you do, but what's happening on a cellular level is like red alert, red alert, red alert, even if you don't necessarily feel that. So understanding that that's what's happening. And if you're always in fight or flight mode and you're always fighting, your cells are always attacking yourself, you're putting yourself in a much more susceptible place to develop another autoimmune condition. And I'm like, and as Janae and me know, you don't want another one. You don't. I promise you. Like, you don't want type 1 diabetes. I promise you. You do not want Hashimoto's. You do not want to get lupus. You don't want to get RA. Like, you don't need to deal with another one. So like, look at it with those eyes. Like, okay, if I'm willing to take this risk, am I willing to develop another autoimmune condition that I have to manage too? Like, do I want that? No. I am here to tell you, you don't want it. You do not want another autoimmune condition, because then it's just another thing you have to manage that adds more stress to your life. So like, things happen that are out of our control. Of course, Janae, your family had all these accidents, and then that's just proof of what stress can do to you. But if you're willingly doing it, you're setting yourself up for failure. That's my opinion.
And refractory, I remember my thought, refractory celiac is another one. And so that is a risk. It is present in a much, much smaller percentage of celiacs than people think. A lot of people, they're like, I'm still sick with gluten, I'm gluten-free, I must have refractory celiac. We've worked with thousands of clients and there's 2 of them that have had refractory celiac. And those instances are people that knew they were gluten-free, or they should have been gluten-free, or they did not get diagnosed despite them having symptoms for years and years and years. And refractory celiac is when your intestine, the villi, are so damaged they can't heal again. So for all of us, when you're diagnosed, we went gluten-free in a certain timeline, whatever that was. It healed. We were able to digest gluten, not digest gluten. We were able to absorb nutrients again. But so refractory celiac is another concern. It's just not as common as it's talked about, but it's definitely a risk. Is that what you're going to say, Casey?
Something similar. I was also just going to mention, just because you're asymptomatic or not having as bad of symptoms while you're cheating also doesn't mean it will always be that way. I know personally that the longer I've been gluten-free, the more extreme my symptoms have gotten when I'm glutened. So it may also not be in terms of like, oh, I just don't have that bad of celiac. It may just be that your body has never been allowed to heal to the point that it will actually react to gluten in the most extreme way.
Okay, we are going to do 2 more questions, rapid fire, and then we're going to close it up, and all of us are going to answer these. We'll go in the same order we did intros, ladies. So first, best advice for someone newly diagnosed.
Just know that gluten-free food can be delicious. It is so much easier finding delicious gluten-free options nowadays than it was, and that it's okay to mourn everything that you're losing. Just keep in mind that life is not ending. You are still going to have an amazing, delicious gluten-free life.
I would say have patience with yourself because it is a lifelong journey now since you got your diagnosis. So always remind yourself that things will happen, mistakes happen, but as long as you're calm about it and try not to like overwhelm your brain on top of already overwhelming your stomach is key.
I guess I'll go next. I feel like there's so many highs and there are so many lows, and I feel like the lows can feel a lot heavier than the highs, but just know that those really hard times are going to build you into such a strong person. And when you are done healing, you are going to be a completely different person than when you started your journey, and it's going to be a better version of yourself than when you started.
I'd said it before, but my number 1 tip is don't do it alone, get help. And then my number 2 tip is your taste buds will change, and try new food, try foods that you tried before right after your diagnosis, like in 4 months, because your taste buds will change.
I will say your health is very, very important. So take time to take care of yourself and actually learn what your body needs and what you need. And that's what I'm learning right now.
Yeah. And I'll say, give yourself grace in the beginning. Like, you don't have to be perfect. Like, take time to educate yourself, find the proper resources. All of us ladies are a great example of that. You'll find a lot of misinformation too. Be mindful what you guys learn. But after, I would say like the 6-month mark is a good estimate. A case may vary, asterisk. If you're still not feeling good, look for other causes, right? If you're still not feeling good after going gluten-free, you either need to get somebody, work with somebody, dot your I's, cross your T's, make sure you are gluten-free. And if you are, then it's something else going on. Okay, last question, all the same order. The best food for travel. Like, what do you bring when you're traveling? You're going to like a potluck, whatever you want to share. Like, what is your social event / travel tip?
That's hard.
If it's like, I'll just go with the traveling. If you are going on an airplane, going on an extended flight, and you need something that's really good, something I've been liking doing is having a like gluten-free ramen cup or an oatmeal cup or a brownie cup, anything that you just need water to add to, since you can usually ask for hot water when you've gone through your gate at any coffee shops on the airport or even on the plane. That's really handy. I usually just bring one to bring with me in my carry-on as like a backup, especially if you're doing an international flight and you're like, I don't know if the food on this flight will be safe for me or if it'll be good. At least then you know that you have something in your back pocket if you need it.
Whenever it comes to travel or like events, like if I'm road tripping, not so much airplane, but like the char ciabatta, I'll make so many little deli sandwiches out of 4 of those, wrap them up in saran wrap or cling wrap, throw them in like I have like this little baby lunchbox, throw them in there. And I bring them to like every party, especially in the summer. That's always like my go-to because they're easy. You quickly wrap them up, maybe a bag of chips, and then you're good.
I have taken the longest flight in the world, so if anyone has specific questions, please DM me. But I always stick to always have a freeze-dried meal on you because you don't know when a 7-hour flight will turn into a 30-hour travel day. And you might need that because there might be no gluten-free options. And second, charcuterie board-ish type stuff is the best. Get a little bento box, like snack mix, dried fruit, beef jerky. Those are all things that don't need to be refrigerated. I like to do some like salami, cheese, because I do eat dairy, but there are unlimited options. And people think that they can't travel with food. You can literally travel with everything, including ice packs. They just must be frozen. And sandwiches are a great option. But anyways, I have like an unlimited list of things that you can travel with. So just reach out to me if you need more.
I've done both, like pack food to take to the airport and just get airport food. We're lucky in Salt Lake. There's lots of gluten-free options at our airport. But I'm like Gabby. I always like pack a sandwich and I always pack like chomps. Like I always have something like that on hand just in case, the airline screws up your food, which that's happened to me many times. Always have a backup plan and be prepared for that. But when it comes to potlucks specifically, I always bring like something I want to eat and a dessert I want to eat because I can't always guarantee that I'll be able to have a little treat and like I'm going to want a treat after I eat my meal. So I always bring like whether it's a side or I make my own gluten-free sourdough and I just bring that, but I always bring a dessert too so that I feel like not necessarily like left out.
Traveling, I'm kind of like Lorin. I have like basically adult Lunchables. Like you can get those bento boxes and I'm just filling it full of like a bunch of different snacks, nuts, meats, and then granola bars, just things. But I always have a bag of food with me at all times because you never know when your flight's going to get delayed and you're going to be stuck. And yes, Salt Lake Airport's good, but not all airports are good for gluten-free. And it's really hard in a lot of airports to find gluten-free food.
And if anyone's looking for a good bento box, they sell them at Walmart and they're like $5 and they're huge and they're amazing.
I think you guys said a lot of things. I will say I always pack double what you think you're gonna need because you don't know how long they're gonna be. Also, if you're traveling with people, it's easy, especially I have a toddler that always wants a snack. She's gonna try and dig in my bag. So I want double of my own food. Plus, I always pack for the other people to make sure that they are not digging into my bag because if you get stuck somewhere, they'll be able to get extra food, but you might not be. And so being really mindful of that in a little bit of a selfish way. And then, like everyone said, that bento box option, adult Lunchable, I found that it's really easy to pack snacks, but a lot of people will then eat them as snacks, right? So they'll have like a bag of chips and then they'll wait an hour and they'll eat a chomps and it's just like not satisfying and it's just kind of like sad and but if you're like, this is a charcuterie board, right? And you're eating it like as one meal, it just feels a lot more like satisfying and less like different, I guess. And then always adding a little treat to it. So like some cookies. I recently tried the Partake soft cookies that were delicious. So find your favorite like gluten-free treat and then bring that. Cool. Okay, I'm gonna wrap it up. I know we could all talk about this like forever and hours. For hours. Why don't we share, just kind of wrap it up, where everyone could find you? Casey, I'm sorry.
So you can find me pretty much on any platform as College Celiac Casey. Pretty easy to find.
Same here on TikTok and Instagram, mostly No Gluten Gabby.
Mainly on Instagram and TikTok, eat gluten-free with me.
I'm on Instagram and TikTok as well, Good Gluten-Free Grub, and my podcast is called the Good Gluten-Free Grub Podcast. It's available on Apple and Spotify.
You can find me on Instagram mostly. I said it already, platforms. I don't do anything with them, but Instagram and then my website, Clean Monday Meals.
And you can find me on Instagram at Celiac Space, TikTok when I feel like it, and our app, which is the Celiac app in the App Store and Android. Right. Thank you all for being in this space.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you. Bye, guys.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.